ever fear for your life, for having such a close relationship with Robert Sobukwe?
I wasn't popular, A, with the government or with the white community. I had restricted friends because of this. My real troubles came in the mid-1960s when I wrote a major expose of abusive prison conditions for the Rand Daily Mail, and all hell broke loose. The government just went for us. And the next 4 years of my life were occupied in a series of trials, and I didn't have a passport for 5.5 years. That was a tricky time, because then there were times that my life was threatened. I used to have a bodyguard at various times and so on. But I kept up the contact with Sobukwe. I wasn't allowed to see him again, but we wrote to each other. And that was difficult because I was attending increasingly to all his needs. I mean, he needed trousers altered. He would send them to me. We got to the stage of sending telegrams. He would send me a telegram, heater broken, please get a new one. This is from a prisoner in solitary confinement. The whole thing was bizarre.
That sounds bizarre.
Absolutely bizarre. And I had wonderful friends in Cape Town who were my agents here. The late Lee Stott, who was a city councillor, Noel Robb, Moira Henderson. They did wonderful things, just did it because I asked them to do it, and they helped to look after him. But I sent in his clothes. He started doing law through the University of London. I provided all the books and reading books. But you never knew what was going to happen. So I used to agonize over letters because they didn't black out anything. They'd simply not let the letter through. And it would take 3-4 weeks for a letter anyway. They used to hold on to them. So it would take 4 or 5 months before I realized a letter hadn't got through. And I was careful with letters, because you write something, some unknown person is going to be reading this letter and deciding whether to let it through. So I would agonize, and the letters, a lot of them are bland, because I was trying to scratch his mind all the time, to keep him alive, to keep him in contact. Because if you've been in prison, I had just a few days in Johannesburg at one stage, it's amazing how quickly you get cut off from the world. And he was in solitary, not seeing people. Eventually it damaged him a great deal, which is why they finally threw him out, because he'd been damaged by this. It was a very, very hard life, and he never knew how long. He believed they'd never let him out.
Yeah.
He believed he was there for the rest of his life, and that is a corrosive thing to happen to someone.
Tell me about his life when he was released from prison.
Well, he got released, in quotes. He was banished to Kimberley, a place he didn't know. And they just dumped him in a large house with very little furniture. And there was quite a funny story about that, because the Council of Churches, I went to them and they gave me money so you could buy some furniture. And I went down to Kimberley, and didn't have all that amount of money. And Bob had his dream set on a black leather lounge suite. And we toured the furniture shops in Kimberley, and it so turned out the black leather lounge suites were the most expensive. And I was very worried about the cash, and I kept trying to show him, and I said, Bob, it's a lovely suite, this lovely chairs. No, you like that leather one. And after 2 days of this, I just gave up. I thought, oh hell, anyone who spends 6 years in solitary is entitled to a lounge suite of his suite. And Mrs. Sobukwe in Graaff-Reinet, the last time I was there, still got the lounge suite. It's in beautiful condition.
Really?
Because the quality was so good.
Well, there you go.
But I see him regularly. He did law and got articled, and we were able to get the Law Society to register him, which was important because he had a conviction. But I was able to get friends in the Cape Law Society, the late Philip Herbstein, to push a bit, and we got that through. And he set up practice, and he had a habit of not charging people. And the black consciousness people there have told me, they used to complain that he's the people's lawyer, but how does he live? But he had a hard, they were watching him all the time. He was house arrested, sunset to sunrise, weekends. So I'd go down to see him. We were always followed by the security police wherever we went. And we'd go in Kimberley in midsummer, you'd find some scrawny thorn bush outside the town, or inside the town. You couldn't go outside the boundaries, and we'd sit there, and the security police 20 feet away, just watching us all the time. But he got through, and he was creating a life there. Steve Biko slipped out, I believe, to see him illegally, took a risk because they were both banned, and Biko was confined to King Williamstown. And eventually, however, he developed cancer, and that was hard because he was telling me he wasn't feeling well, and I wanted him to come to Johannesburg to be checked by a doctor, good doctor, because in Kimberley the doctors weren't very good. And it took time before I persuaded him to apply, before they gave permission. And then they broke their own rules. They said he could come for Saturday night. He had to stay at my home in Parktown North, a white area. They broke their own rules because blacks weren't allowed to live in these areas. And we were ordered to go straight from the airport to the doctor and straight to my home. No visitors, nothing. My mother-in-law said, to hell with us, she came to visit him. But we had no visitors. And the late Bodo Koch, who was a wonderful physician, examined him. Bob didn't have the x-rays because the Kimberley hospital had screwed up. And Bodo examined him and said, look, it's this, it's that, it's not too serious. And a few weeks later, the x-rays from Kimberley arrived, and Bodo Koch took one look and saw the lung cancer. And he was operated on at Kruiskier, but it was too late. All the delays, gone. Died 6 months later.